Back for another edition of In the Huddle. Carl Dukes put them up along with my man Jason Canfora. Of course, Brian Baldinger, part of this podcast as well, guys. We today are going to do a free agent primer because there's a lot that's going to play out here over the next few weeks. We know the new league year doesn't start until March 12th, but we do have a lot of what ifs to talk about. So, Jason, we're going to hit some of those tonight and talk about a little bit of this as we record this podcast, guys, on Wednesday. It'll be out here the rest of the week, but we wanted to kind of give you a middle of the week feel of waiting to see what the cap was going to be. And I want to start there, Jason, by the way. The cap numbers came out today. We knew it would be an increase. How much does this help some of the teams that we're going to be talking about, some of the guys that they may be pursuing?
I think it's negligible. The most committed owners, the most committed front offices find ways to make things work. And the people who want to hide behind the salary cap as a means not to spend what it'll probably require or commit what will probably be committed, need to be committed to be better, can hide behind that. And I'm not saying that free agency is the answer, and this free agency class doesn't frankly do a whole lot for me. And every year I feel like it does less and less for me, but that doesn't mean these same teams couldn't have done some things to extend their own players, to have been more forthright about how they spent their money previously to put them in better positions now. But no, I mean, they always have a range of expectations, and the number ends up falling almost always within that range. And I think the salary cap is the most overly ballyhooed, most, Darth Vader thing in the world. Like they want you to fear it. They want you, they want to be able to use it to lower your expectations and temper your demands for them. But it's completely malleable. You may eventually run into a situation like the Saints where you come up against it, but it took a freaking decade. I mean,
right.
I mean, they started spending, a couple years before they won their Super Bowl. It's been a long time since they won their Super Bowl, and all I know is every year people are like, "Oh, the Saints are going to have to gut their roster. Oh, the Saints are in salary cap hell," and
nothing.
Hadn't really happened to this point. It's going to happen now, but I mean, pretty good run.
I agree. I always say, just to, briefly about the salary cap, there's not a team that doesn't do what they want to do because of it.
Right.
They keep the players they want to keep. They let go of the guys they want to let go, and ultimately it all works out. We roll around every year to the fall and we go, we'll talk about some, not us, but there will be people who talk about the salary cap all offseason, and it doesn't mean shit. No. Like, we'll roll around to the season and the teams will have exactly who they want. They will have paid who they want, and the season rolls on. And so the salary cap has never stopped the team from, they spent too much or they didn't spend enough and we can't play this fall. So I agree with you. I think it's completely overrated. I don't spend a lot of time talking about it because I think it's one of these things that, again, I'm not a capologist, nor do I, try to be. But I also think that every time you look at any team that's competitive, the salary cap has never come into play for those teams that, as you said, are committed. Let's talk about a couple of these guys as we talk about the free agent primer. Aaron Rodgers. Look, you faded this dude all season. You talked about what the Jets were not and what they weren't going to be, and then we saw the debacle of them firing their coach and the OC and blah, blah, blah. And now they have a new coach and a new general manager. But where the hell is Aaron Rodgers going to end up? And is this going to end good or bad?
Well, I mean, his best days are well behind him. He was already a declining, diminished player when Green Bay finally parted with him, and he's now had, one catastrophic injury since then and one catastrophic season, frankly. I don't know, Carl. I mean, he could be, 3 or 4 different teams, 4th or 5th best option. But nobody's running out of the gate to do a deal with Aaron Rodgers. I think everything with Aaron Rodgers is going to be contingent on what else we could do with player X or player Y. And then, Aaron Rodgers is going to have to be very realistic about his price point. But he's not a leader. He's not a Tom Brady who was fully committed, 24/7, 365.
Well, it cost Brady his marriage, right?
Well, I mean, that's how committed he was. I mean, and this guy wants to go to Egypt and look at pyramids and sit in the jungle and snort whatever or smoke whatever. It is what it is. So there's that element of it. There's the sideshow circus because his ego and his quasi philosophical persona is more important to him than anything else. So he wants to have the avenues to express that stuff. I don't think guys are gravitating towards him at all in the locker room anymore. So, and he's a diminished player. So I look, there's at least one idiot in every village. So he's got to find the right billionaire idiot. There probably is someone out there for him at the right price. Maybe it's Mark Davis. Maybe somebody gets hurt in OTAs and a team gets really desperate. He might have to sit for a while. It'll be fascinating, but people are much more interested in Matt Stafford or Sam Darnold or Kirk Cousins or,
Yes.
Even Russ Wilson, definitely Justin Fields. There's not that those options are great. Some of them better than others, but he's, for most people, less than that.
I'm just happy that the Jets actually made a good decision.
Sure.
Like Aaron Glenn didn't come in and go, you know what? This is good. We're
Got
going
to put Humpty Dumpty back together.
Yeah, we're going to roll with him. And to me, that's even the bigger statement as we've talked about the dysfunction with the Jets is that the head coach and the GM convinced the owner that this was not the route to go. As we talk about potential things that are going to play out, guys, how does the Cincinnati Bengals keep T. Higgins, Trey Hendrickson, and pay Jamar Chase, who's going to become the highest paid wide receiver in the league? How?
I don't think they do. And there's two teams right now that are sending signals one way about the tag, and I still am believing the opposite until I see it. So you've got the Bengals now, who all of a sudden the day before the tag window opens up, you got multiple reporters saying, hey, they're ready to put the tag on T. Higgins. I mean, are they really? Are they really? Are they going to pay him that and then still give Jamar Chase his 38 or 39, whatever his number is going to be? And you got one guy at close to 30 and one guy at close to 40, and they might only be together for a year.
Right.
You might be squatting on them for a year, and you're going to give T. Higgins $50 million plus for whatever for 2 years, and he still has a chance to walk because there's no guarantees he signs anything by July. I just don't think they're going to be willing to do that at the end of the day. I think it's a scare tactic. I think they want to get him to do a deal during this window. But if they don't, I'm not fully committed that they do that. And then you've got the Vikings who, have kind of intimated they're not going to put anything on Darnold. But every time I talk to a quarterback needy general manager, he's like, I really don't think we're going to get a chance at Sam Darnold. Like, our chance at Sam Darnold might be trying to sign him to an offer sheet on a transition tag or a non-exclusive franchise tag. Like, they're really going to let him just go out into the marketplace and take a comp pick for him in 2 years, a year from now. Like, they don't think the Vikings are going to end up doing that. Maybe they do. But it would seem to be a little short-sighted, especially with so many questions about J.J. McCarthy. So I a lot of smart people in this league on the agent side and the GM side are like, why don't you just transition him and see what happens?
Right.
And you might get him cheaper if nobody wades out there. And if somebody does wade out there, you've got the ability to match that offer sheet or work out a trade. Why would you just let him go unencumbered into this marketplace with it as bleak as it is at the quarterback spot and with their, a quarter of the league that needs quarterbacks? And there's going to be 3 that go in the first round, and they're all going to have questions. So the last, I guess 12, 13 days from now to be pretty interesting because I don't think anybody else is getting tagged. I think these are the 2 most interesting situations, and I suspect they go down to the end.
He is Jason La Canfora. I'm Carl Dukes. Of course, Brian Baldinger, part of this podcast, guys. It's in the huddle. Subscribe, like us. Tell your friends. Don't miss an episode as we talk nothing but ball, NFL, throughout the course of the year. Season, in season, off season, as which we are right now. And by the way, you can watch us live, too, at In the Huddle Pod on YouTube. Let's talk about this Matthew Stafford thing. The rumor is, Jason, that the Giants allegedly are interested in potentially trading for Matthew Stafford. Does that make sense? And if you're Stafford, is that somewhere you want to be? If the Rams have completely said, hey, you're not going to be our guy, it's time to cut the cord, we're moving on. If you're Stafford, is there a more attractive place than going to the Giants and working with that situation?
I mean, maybe the Steelers. I mean, the Raiders are rebuilding. The Saints they need a quarterback. They want to get out of Carr. They're not going to pay another $50 million quarterback. So not that they're any good anyway, but like that doesn't really make sense. The Browns are going to draft one. The Titans are going to draft one. So that probably takes them out of the mix. I mean, you really want to go to the Jets after that shit show with Aaron Rodgers? Like, I don't know. Like the Steelers is the one to me that I think could be interesting. Can you trade for Matt Stafford and maybe make a trade for a wide receiver and try to go for it? Because once you trade the picks, you're going to have to trade for Stafford. You might as well mortgage some more to try to get, somebody, whether it's one of the Seattle receivers or, I don't know that Debo's got a whole lot left in the tank. That one would give me a lot of pause. Maybe you do a combo deal and you get Cooper Kupp as well, and you get what's left of him. But yeah, there's a lot of smoke to this Stafford thing, and I've been hearing it for quite some time. And at this point, if you are the Rams and he maybe wants to leave, or his wife maybe wants to leave, or things are going a little sideways, then you move him, you get some quality picks for him, you clear that money off the deck, and maybe you rent Kirk Cousins for a year. Or maybe you do the deal with Sam Darnold. I know Sam Darnold would love to play for Sean McVay if the Vikings do just let him go out into the marketplace. So, those could be, viable options as that team sort of transitions a little bit to a world not only post Aaron Donald, but post Matt Stafford and post Cooper Kupp.
Daniel Jones in play for the Steelers. I keep hearing this possibility as well. And I get it. The age is attractive. With Arthur Smith still being there as the offensive coordinator, maybe that makes more sense. I don't know. And the price tag, again, how much cheaper is that? But I find that interesting that his name continues to pop up.
Yeah, it's interesting, but like they had a chance to sign him to their practice squad or whatever when Minnesota did. And I mean, is he better than Justin Fields? Like I keep hearing that if Justin Fields didn't get hurt, Justin Fields was going to be playing more football for them down the stretch. So wouldn't you just get the guy who is less banged up and, I still younger and probably cheaper, and he's been in your system for a year?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't get why they don't commit there anyway. I mean, like, again, 25 years old. I know the limitations, but, you try to work with them and you figure it out. And I think he still gives them probably the best chance to maybe win. But, obviously Tomlin didn't feel like he could take them to a Super Bowl, so they make the change, and then that became what it was. So I don't know. Like, to me, this is one of the biggest mysteries that's going to take place this offseason with how they fix that, whether they stay the course or fix it with somebody else, and then to your point, improve. And you mentioned this about Cooper Kupp or one of these other wide receivers. Listen, the Pickens kid is really talented, but he's a child. He needs to grow up, and he hasn't had anybody to show him how to be a professional. Now, the other part of this is, I don't know if he was in tune with wanting to know or learn from a vet, but like he's been that guy there with nobody to say, yo, you don't do that. This is the way we do things. And I think that might be important if the Steelers are wanting to keep him long term.
Well, they're just not a dynamic team. If they bring Harris back, and I don't know if they will, he's not a dynamic back. They never really seem to want to feature Warren for whatever reason, and he's banged up because he's a smaller guy. The tight end, they got the Washington, a huge kid who's kind of a plotter who they haven't been able to unlock. And Freiermuth to me is a guy. He's not an athletic winner for you. There's guys who win for you athletically at that position. To me, he's more of a plod horse. He's more of a chain mover. He's not a thoroughbred. Yeah. And then the wide receiver situation is bleak. And again, with Pickens, there's a lot of athletic traits you like, but there's more than that goes into playing the position. So they need help there. There's no two ways about it. You get the sense that people are feeling real pressure from ownership. they've gotten that ownership group to change their spots in some ways, in a lot of ways. And maybe this is a year that they take on a little more salary and are even more ambitious than we've seen them in the past. But they've been willing to make trades. They've been willing to move around the draft board and do some things that they normally wouldn't do there. I mean, Matt Stafford played in Detroit, I mean, he hasn't played outdoors like this, but I mean, they played in Green Bay. They'd play in Chicago every year. He's been in that kind of blue collar city before. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's his best option.
Yeah. Look, this is going to be intriguing, which is why we're talking about it now. There are a lot of things that are going to play out. And some of this stuff might start to, we might get a clear picture here once the new league year starts and we start to see some of these other moves from other teams. Let's talk about a couple other players, guys. It's just basically we're talking about free agency and the primer as far as guys that are going to be available, what makes sense, some of these quarterback moves, along with Jason Canfora. I'm Carl Dukes. Here's the deal. Let's talk about Ronnie Stanley. Let's talk about Khalil Mack. Let's talk about some of these other pieces, Jason, and what happens with these guys. Because I think there's a bunch of places Khalil Mack could end up. Is he washed, though? Is he done? What are we talking about? What's his snap count? He's not coming in there being the dominant Khalil Mack that he once was, is he?
Well, I think he's going to do really well in this marketplace because there's not a whole lot else out there, and there's not many people who have his skill set. I have actually heard that going back to Chicago is not out of the question.
Wow. Okay.
Different staff. That defense fell apart in the second half after they fired Eberflus. I think there were some leadership issues there.
Sure.
That was a team that seemed to wave the white flag, not really compete at times. Some of those games got really ugly and out of hand. I don't know. Crazier things have happened in this league. I do think he'll do pretty well. I don't think the Chargers are going to keep paying Bosa. And then Max Crosby, I guess they keep him. They should trade him, but I don't know that Pete Carroll wants to go trading his best players at age 73. I suspect probably not. But if the Myles Garrett return is boffo, I do wonder if that would make the Raiders say, you know what? Maybe we ride that tailwind too. And if that's what they got for Garrett and we could get that and maybe a little something extra for our guy, who knows? Who knows? But I have heard buzz about Khalil Mack and the Bears. Ronnie Stanley, to me, makes all the sense in the world for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes.
And you move Tooney back inside. They signed, they got Orlando Brown, a Ravens tackle a few years ago.
Jace, what's that
worked
cost?
out well for them.
What were they paying him up there? What's the cost?
Well, he was at the end of a long-term deal where he got $20 million a year 5 years ago, back when that was a big deal for tackles. Look, I think Ronnie Stanley knows he's only got a few years left in his body. So I think you could structure a 5-year deal for cap purposes. That's really a 2-year deal. And you maybe get him for what amounts to $50 million for 2 years, maybe a little less. I think he wants to win. I don't think he's a guy who's just looking for a paycheck. I don't think he's looking to go to the worst team that gives him, a little bit more than anybody else. I mean, is Trent Williams, what's up with Trent Williams? Is his body betraying him? If it is, that would be another team that would be looking for maybe a stopgap tackle, a contending team to help them for a couple years. The injury history with Ronnie Stanley is deep, but is there somebody who wants to move him to the right side maybe and prolong things that way? Look, I think he's the best tackle out there. I don't think it's particularly close. Again, it's not a great crop of free agents. So, but Kansas City, Andy Reid is he's like Baltimore offensive lineman before.
Yeah, it's true. He's not fearful to go get a guy like that. A couple more here we need to hit. What do you think about Josh Sweat? You going to get paid after this Super Bowl run?
The Bryce Huff kid, made $17 million last year to do nothing? So,
nothing.
you know what I mean? And then look, did he have really high metrics and advanced analytics? And for a guy who was situational, You look at pressures per snap with the Jets, and it was off the charts. So, but yeah, I mean, I think Josh Sweat does pretty well. I do. I mean, will Baltimore ever pay for a pass rusher? I don't know, but try hard Kyle Van Noy's been really good for them. But I mean that he's more of a really good edge defender
Is
than
that what you
somebody.
call him? Try hard?
Yeah, well, I mean, he just does everything. Like he's the little engine that could. Like he's proven people wrong for a couple of years, but nobody stays up at night thinking about how they're going to block Kyle Van Noy.
No, they don't.
It's just not who he is. What's going to happen with the Bills and Von Miller? Could a Josh Sweat make sense for them? Yeah, I think Josh Sweat will do pretty well.
Yeah, and to your point, it's all about the marketplace. It's all about what's available, how the draft looks. We know this is a deep edge rusher draft. So, these guys that are on the marketplace, they got to get what they possibly can. But a lot of these teams are not going to be taking edge rushers. Everybody's not taking one with their pick in the first round. So some of these teams are going to try to seek to fill that void in free agency. As we talk about, the wide receiver position, look, I thought Amari Cooper was okay. I think he was great. And, when we start talking about the wide receiver market, like we talked about Cincinnati already, and those guys, the Jamar Chases of the world, he's going to reset the market. But, like, where is Amari Cooper in this mix of things?
I don't know, man. I think you have to start really wondering about the health. These are 2 straight years where he hit the wall, or 2 out of the last 3 years where he kind of hit the wall a little bit. You look at that body of work with the 6 games or whatever with Joe Flacco, and it looks a little different than anything else around it. There seems to just be a lot of the, you know what I mean? DeAndre Hopkins and Keenan Allen and him.
Dude, I think Hop is washed. I think after we saw him in the Super Bowl,
he might be. He might be. There's a lot of guys who are used to wide receivers who are used to making $20 million a year or more who are going to find themselves on this market. And, beauty will be in the eye of the beholder. How many of them really stretch the field? I mean, look, when Amari Cooper's right, he is still a guy you can sell yourself, can stretch the field. I don't know how much you're saying that about some of these other guys, but there's a lot of name receivers out there. That's a young man's game. Colleges, continue to produce them at a high rate. I don't think any of them are going to do particularly well. Some of them, I mean, most of them will probably be on 1-year deals somewhere.
Yeah, I agree.
With some incentives. I mean, like if any of them got what Odell Beckham got from the Ravens 2 years ago, I'd be surprised. Like, I don't think they're getting, 14, 15 million guaranteed with a chance to make more in incentives. I don't think that's there for any of those guys.
He stole money, didn't he?
I mean, hey, no, they gave it. Look, they don't want to pay people in free agency, and they gave it to him. So he got the owner's ear. Hey, look, he's a smooth operator. He convinced a guy who doesn't really want to spend that kind of money on outside free agents to pay him like he was still a number one or an older one. But yeah, I mean, he's done. I think a lot of these guys are hitting the wall, and it's kind of like you're better off picking one up late in the year at the deadline where he hasn't maybe played that much for where he is. Some of these guys will invariably sign with teams that aren't that good, and then maybe you pick them up for nothing at the deadline, for a 6th-round pick, and you pay them half that low salary and see if they catch fire, and turn it into a sprint versus a marathon. But yeah, look, if T. Higgins hits the open market, I think T. Higgins is getting $30 million a year. And I think the New England Patriots are the first people in line to try to make that happen. We'll find out if Mike Brown puts a tag on him or not. If he doesn't, I don't think Mike Brown's winning a bidding war for T. Higgins on the open market with Robert Kraft. Robert Kraft, who's been shamed up there lately, and people pointing out that you lost Tom Brady because you wouldn't spend money to keep guys. And, what do you have for it now? And how are you going to develop Drake May without anybody to catch the ball? And you got the worst position group, worst skill position guys in the league, and your offensive line sucks. I think he's taking that to heart. So I think if he's got his eyes on any of these receivers, he's going to be a tough guy to outmaneuver.
All right, before we wrap up, Jason, because today we found out the league has got more international games, and as we record this, again, it's midweek. We're kind of waiting to see, some of the things that are going to play out here as we get ready for free agency and the start of the new league year. But let's be honest, league doesn't need to do this shit. Like, they're going to Brazil again. They're going to Berlin. We knew some of this, right? They're going to London. They're going to Dublin. And it's just like, I said this today, and I want your thoughts on this. It's not as if we go to these countries and then all of a sudden their kids are playing American football and they turn into Tom Brady, right? Nobody is coming over and dominating the American football the way we've seen in the NBA or even in the NHL.
This is not about competition at all. It's just about opening up portals to sell jerseys. It's about having people on the Fanatics website in Brazil decide to buy a Eagles jersey instead of a Corinthians or Sao Paulo soccer jersey. Like, that's all it's about. I mean, it's a marketing ploy. It's hoping that you get a little bit of a groundswell, not for competitive reasons, but because maybe there's more than one broadcast outlet that wants to bid for the rights to American football, and so you make more money on your some of your South American TV deals. Like, that's what it's about. I mean, they played on fields last year that weren't ready for NFL football, that weren't equipped for NFL football. Yep. Jordan Love got a monster contract, hurt himself on the bad field. The first game was never right all year. And now the response to that is, let's send Herbert out there. Let's send another $50 million quarterback out there. Let's see if Spanos is cool with it. So yeah, if it compromises their whole season, so be it. Like, if he's on another soft field and he can't get his footing right and he's throwing all awkwardly because they can't find the right studs and cleats to go with that, type of sod. Yeah, it's all right. We found a loophole and there's another Friday game and we can get around the antitrust bullshit and we'll watch it. I'll watch it. You'll watch it.
Of course. Yeah. So, it's just, the thing is, like, the NBA's purpose to go over internationally was to have what has happened.
Yes.
Joker and Giannis and Luka and all these guys. Yes. 20 years ago, watching the NBA overseas, and they're going, I want to be over there and I want to play. That has happened. It happens with hockey worldwide. That doesn't happen in the NFL. They're not going over there for that. And so it just tells you exactly what you said, which is it's a money grab. But I just, I hate the fact that the teams that are involved lose home games, and the fans don't get a chance. So many fans cannot afford to go, Jason, you know this, overseas and do these damn trips. I mean, like, it sounds great, but, you're going to go to Dublin for a week and then you're going to spend X amount of dollars on tickets. And it's ridiculous.
Oh, no, it's not. I mean, that's a furthest concern from their mind, and that's not even. I mean,
nope.
No, it's follow the money.
Jason Lock on 4, Carl Dukes, guys. It's in the huddle. Subscribe. We'll get at you guys next week. We'll be talking more about some of the things that are upcoming and some of the key dates as well, because we've got a lot of stuff that we have to look forward to here over the next few weeks. Next week's the Combine. We'll be talking about that. I think Baldy's back next week, so we'll be breaking down some of those things as well. So make sure you tune in and check us out. Make sure you subscribe. It's in the huddle. Take care.